just so much size on this court. There's going to be just so much length and just presence in the paint. Pause, resume. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of Not Top 25. As the road to the Final Four has finally come to fruition, we are here 1 week out of the last dance, the last four teams remaining. My dance was ended very quickly, bracket-wise and fan-wise. There's someone in this podcast, however, that is still dancing very heavily and is the it girl of the dance currently of his bracket, Mr. 99%, Keaton Owsley. How we doing, big dog?
I'm doing well. Unfortunately, like you said, my team was put out in the second round like yours. However, my bracket being so well has made up for that loss substantially. So I'm very proud of myself, and I did not expect this. So this has been a pleasant surprise, this March Madness.
I want to be careful with how I word this because I am very close to you, like almost 10 feet away, but knock on wood, how much pot or how much stake do you have in the pot here? Like how many bracket competitions you in? What's the possible payout? Just to give context to the viewers at home who may want to cheer for you this weekend.
Yeah, so I'm in 3 bracket challenges. I got one with my family. That one's just for bragging rights. It's a bunch of our family friends as well. And then I'm in one at work. That's a pretty decent pot. And then my hometown friends and I did one, and that's a pretty decent pot as well. So it's not 4 digits, but it's up there for sure.
Yeah.
And then what else was I going to say?
That's still
I was talking to my buddies in my hometown group chat, and they were like, dang, dude, you're 99.9 percentile. I was like, yeah, I mean, it would look like really, really bad if I was in last place or towards the bottom of our bracket challenge, considering we have a sports podcast. And they're like, yeah, that's a good point to make. So I'm just glad I'm like holding my word and, making us look like professional ball knowers like we are.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a chance to win a lot of pot. No Aiden Holloway, but I just had to let that one fly. That one was sitting in me. Yeah, but at the same time, though, there's always that like joke around March Madness that the less ball you know, the better your bracket is, because usually it's like grandmas and girlfriends who pick the cuter mascot or the head coach they think's more handsome, or just by flip of the coin. But I guess in the era of NIL where the brackets are a tad bit more chalky, it does come down to more ball knowledge. So props to you. And I think one of the wildest picks you had, which I didn't have the balls to do despite my deep burning hatred for them, was the Uconn over Duke pick. Where you had St. John, but you still had Duke losing, and you had Uconn in the Final Four. And
Right.
I think we would be mistaken if we did not kick things off talking about one of the all-time classics in Washington, D.C. this past Sunday. I almost spit out my acai bowl when I saw that little last sequence come to life. Holy cow, man. Classic me, Duke's up 20, go to get dinner, come back, it's a ball game. I almost thought about locking myself in the car. Tell me how that happened.
I mean, it was just the same exact collapse as it was last year against Houston. I mean, I feel like that's just what happens when you have a bunch of freshmen who are inexperienced in games like this. And also, this is no knock at Shire. He's young. He's got such a, good career such a good career ahead of him. However, I just feel like Dan Hurley's been in that situation before. I mean, he's been to the Final Four 3 out of the last 4 years, and I feel like experience matters at this point in the tournament more than anything. I don't know. That was a completely feel-based pick to begin with, but I'm glad it came to fruition, and Duke just did what Duke does in March, and they choked, even though they had the best players on paper every year.
Yeah, those are back-to-back just all-time losses. I can't imagine if I'm a 12 to 13-year-old Duke fan, like diehard Duke, like you actually have a reason to be a Duke fan and experience that, because that age is the point of your life where I would say nothing else in life really matters but the teams you cheer for. Gives you no responsibility. And that's the point where like your college sports passion is the highest because the players are older than you. You look up to them. I can go on and on, but the losses also hit harder. So my goodness, I couldn't imagine me being that age experiencing both those losses. That would be a nightmare for my parents.
Yeah, I'm sure there was a bunch of crying middle schoolers after that game on Sunday, without a doubt. Man, I don't even know what to make of that game. That was one of the best games I've seen in my life, in my opinion. Just coming back from down 19 at halftime and then just the last 10 seconds of that game, small boozer just selling, completely selling for Duke. And,
I feel
you
bad
know,
for him.
I do too. I feel really bad for the kid. I mean, he played his heart out. He's been playing his heart out all year, but it was kind of funny. Just as soon as that happened and the game ended, I went to his comment section on Instagram on his most up to date post, and it was just the most horrendous stuff was getting said. And I'm like, man, he's an 18, 19-year-old kid. Like, give him a break. Everybody makes mistakes. He just happened to make a really, really, really unfortunate mistake. So,
But when they panned to Shire on the sideline, and honestly, in the moment, there are two wide open Duke players under the basket. If he puts a tad bit of loft on that pass, that's a dunk. That's an exclamation point. That game's over. Duke's going to Indy. I think it
well,
was just a scared pass. It was like I made the same joke last week talking about Kentucky in the press, but it felt like me and AAU basketball just panicking there and making the
Well,
wrong decision.
obviously, like, everybody saw, Small Boozer make the mistake, but to be honest, Shire had a timeout left. He coulda called a timeout. They coulda got a 10-second violation. It wouldn't have mattered. There was, like, 10.2 on the clock when they inbounded. There's a bunch of people at fault here, but obviously Small Boozer was the one who gets the blame just because he's the one that turned the ball over when it mattered most.
Man, when you have freshmen, you got to use a timeout. I don't care. Cal was victim to it a ton. Kay was even victim to it with Zion and them. Use your timeout. They've never been in this situation before. I don't care how many stars are next to their name. Use the timeout. Gather the troops. Regroup.
Yeah, just in general. I mean, you just got to calm the nerves, regardless of whether they're freshmen or seniors. I mean, it's still a hectic situation. And, just you're the coach. You have to make the best decision for your team. And I don't think Shire did that in that moment, even though Caden Boozer is the one that got all the blame for it. So,
Yeah, and you saw it on the other end too. Caravan being a fourth year starter, senior, captain, national champion, making the right play, swinging it over to Braylon Mullins when he didn't have the look. He could have selfishly had his moment there and chucked up a contested three, but decided not to.
yeah, that was a veteran play right there. I mean, the kid got the turnover, passed it to Caravan. Caravan said, you shoot it, and I thought it was funny. Braylon Mullins hadn't hit a shot all game, or at least hadn't hit a three all game. And it was just cool to see that that was the one that went in.
Yeah, and what were your thoughts on Hurley's reaction afterwards? Him and Roger Ayers, that's been the talk of the college hoops world. Did Hurley deserve a tech there? Would that have been, bad feel by Ayers? Are they buddies? Like, what happened there?
I don't know. I'm still a little confused. I didn't hear his take or why he did that to the ref. I mean, in my eyes, I think you call a tech there. I heard the Duke reporter or their student, announcer talking about it. I kind of agree with the guy, but like, you can't do that in that moment. You're a coach. Like, at least have a little bit more composure. Now, I can't say I would be doing any better if my player just hit a shot from damn near the logo to win the game. So he's at fault there, but at the same time, I don't really know what to make of that situation. Emotions are high all around. You got a bunch of people screaming. It's sensory overload to the max. So I don't know.
Yeah, it was definitely an all timer, and that will play into my question I want to ask you. We're only 24 years old, so we missed the Leitner shot. We missed the Weber timeout. We missed some crazy, March Madness moments we see on replay. But the fact we see them on replay all the time kind of alludes to the fact that they're legendary moments. I think this is going to be one of those moments our grandkids will see. So for us right now, and for you in particular, where does this rank in your all-time March Madness moments?
I think this is top three. Those are two huge basketball brands, if not, top five for sure. I would put it second or third. I think the biggest one ever is Chris Jenkins hitting that game winner against North Carolina in 2016. I just don't think it gets any better than that. That's a winner take all situation. Jay Wright drew up a great play and the ball just happened to go in. But the fact that that was in the national championship, I would put that at one, and I would put this at two or three.
I'm going to put this at a strong 3, and I agree with you on the Chris Jenkins shot. That's 1 because that was for all the marbles. I'm going to put UMBC beating Virginia at 2 because I think that was such a historic moment, an historic ass kicking too, and that was crazy.
That
So
was crazy.
are there any other moments that come to mind? I mean, that is a 40-foot jack, no hesitation from a true freshman from a cornfield in Indiana, Hoosiers-esque, against the biggest brand in college hoops. That's hard to top.
Yeah, I'm going to put Ty Rodgers, Western Kentucky legend, hitting the game winner against, I think it was Vanderbilt. I think we were the 13th seed that year. This was like 2008, but shout out Tops.
I've actually seen that video. Yeah, go ahead and throw Western a bone.
Any buzzer beater in March is up there, dude. I mean, it just doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other big because usually when you see these buzzer beaters, they're in the first couple rounds. I mean, LeBron Butler's buzzer beater in the Final Four, but that was the most irrelevant Final Four ever. So that won't be remembered to the likes of this. And I just think the fact it's Duke. Like, we always see the Luke May shot. I feel like if Carolina would have hit that shot against, let's say, West Virginia
Right.
or Iowa, they would not be the same.
No, no, it wouldn't. And that's why I think this one is, top two, if not it's third, just because of the brands in the game and stuff like that. But yeah, that Chris Jenkins shot's number one for me, and I just think it always will be because of the
Yeah.
stakes.
Jalen Suggs' buzzer beater in the Final Four also deserves mention, but
Mm,
again, it just due to the fact it was a COVID one, and I guess UCLA and Gonzaga aren't on the level of brand that a Dan Hurley coached UConn and Duke are. So yeah,
I
an all-time moment at DC. So UConn back in the Final Four, 3 out of 4 years. I think the Hurley era is on pace to fully cement UConn into the tier of the Kentucky, Kansas, North Carolina. I still think they're on the tier. They're like the light blue blood, which I still think is like Duke, UCLA, those two. And then there's UConn, where Kansas, North Carolina, Kentucky have been generational,
right.
where UCLA and Duke only have dominated eras, and same with UConn. So UConn's
Mhm.
approaching two different Hall of Fame coaching dynasties with Calhoun and Hurley, and then one in the middle with Kevin Ollie. So UConn
If
is
they
the
I
gold
mean,
standard.
if they get 7 in 27 years, that's one of the craziest runs in all of sports history, in my opinion, other than Wooden and UCLA back in the '60s, But I mean, it's hard to make an argument that they're not a blue blood at this point, especially if they get another national championship. I mean, I think that solidifies them, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's any debate. But speaking of banners, let's talk about a program that has none, and that would be the University of Tennessee, Knoxville.
Yeah, they have Nilch, like we talked about on the Rapid Reacts. Great season for them nonetheless. And, I tip my cap to Rick Barnes. He's done it 3 years in a row to the Elite Eight, but they can't get over the hump, man. I don't know what it is, if it's fate, if it's history, if it's bad mojo. I really don't know, but they just can never find a way to take that next step into the Final Four.
Okay, no. Here's where I disagree with you. You're tipping the cap to them. All right. So let's put this in dating terms. Your boy goes on 3 dates. They're amazing. He doesn't close in any of them. Are you still going to give him his flowers? Because that's basically what Tennessee did in basketball terms.
I don't know. I guess you make a good point there, but I mean, just the fact that they've never had history whatsoever and they've gone to Elite Eight 3 years in a row. I mean, that's better than my program that I cheer for and the one you cheer for right now. So I have to give flowers where flowers is due just because my team is doing so much worse and has been over the last decade. I mean, and also I like Rick Barnes as a coach. His players play hard, they're physical, and I admire that style of basketball in an era where if you just throw your head back, a foul gets called. You know what I mean?
I still want to pressure you on the question of sure, it's respectable. Yes, but it's not like admirable. Three straight Elite Eights. That's not really, storybook. That's nothing really to write home about, especially with a program that's so invested like Tennessee is. It's not nothing absurd that they had Dalton Connect, the SEC Player of the Year, got to the Elite Eight. They had back-to-back great senior point guards. Nate Mintz, a first-round pick. Chaz Lanier, Nashville's own, great player. Yeah, sure they got to the Elite Eight. I'm not, that's nothing absurd to me. They didn't get over the hump though, and for that, I think honestly, it's dare I say deserves a tad bit of criticism.
Well, I can see where you're coming from just because of the fact they got absolutely dog walked by 33.
And
So,
back-to-back years as well.
yeah, on the contrary, Michigan is a different animal. And like I told you in that Rapid Reacts, I think Arizona and Michigan will end up ultimately being the national championship. But I see where you're coming from. I'll say that. I definitely see where you're coming from and your criticism.
mean, I'm just a hater too at the end of the day, and it's been this is the only thing that I have to my arsenal in terms of talking smack to rivals right now is Tennessee. Like y'all got us this year. Duke's been one of the best programs, if not the. UConn's the golden standard. North Carolina got to the Natty 4 years ago. We randomly find a way. We as in Kentucky find a way to beat Tennessee, and they have zero Final Fours. So I'm gonna ride that into. It's like a car that you got like 20 years ago. You're going to ride the mileage on that until it doesn't work anymore. And that's what I'm going to do.
That's fair. That's fair. I totally understand that. With that being said, I want to get into these Final Four games. I know I just mentioned Michigan and Arizona. I want to talk about that one second. I want to get into Uconn and Illinois just because I think this game isn't really going to be as good. This is totally field based, but I'm going back to my original point I made. I picked Uconn to go to the national championship in my bracket, and I'm still holding that down. I think Illinois has an exceptionally great team. Their path to the Final Four has been somewhat easy, in my opinion, other than the Houston game. And honestly, Houston just did not play well. But I don't know if they have a good enough offense to keep up with UConn. And I think what's his name? Terrace Edwards, is that the big for UConn, I believe. He's an animal, dude. And I know Illinois is a big team, but they're kind of frail, and I think he's going to give them a lot of problems in the paint when they play. You know, you got guys like Caravan who have been there before. I think he's going to show up when the lights are brightest. And Braylon Mullen's coming off that shot. That kid's got a lot of confidence. I think he's due for a great game as well.
Yeah, it's always tricky with teams like Illinois in a venue such as the Final Four, where it really hurts teams that, like to shoot from the outside. And I feel like UConn has other ways to score, as we saw in the Duke game when their shots weren't falling. They found a way to claw back and score the basketball, where I don't really have that much faith in Illinois as much. So with that being said, I do think UConn is going to squeak by. It's going to be one of those, in the Final Four, there's the game before the nightcap, and obviously I would assume the Arizona-Michigan game would be the primetime slot, is kind of a snoozer. I can't recall any of those games ever really being classics. So I can see this just being a low-scoring, grinded-out snoozer where UConn wins very low, take the under, let's say around, 68-62.
Right. And another thing I forgot to mention during that Duke UConn game is Hurley had Caravan guarding Boozer in the first half, and Caravan just was not big enough to stop Boozer on the glass. And just, when he put his back to him, it was easy for him to score. They came out in the second half, they made some defensive adjustments, and it was night and day difference. So I feel like if anything, if they have another situation like that, Hurley's a good enough coach. He can come out and make some defensive or offensive adjustments, just depending on how the game's going. So I just have more faith in UConn.
Yeah. Let's move on to the battle of the juggernauts.
This game, you can go ahead. Start us out with your take.
Man, this is just fire and fire. This is two Goliaths going at each other. This is going to be a rock fight. Just so much size on this court. There's going to be just so much length and just presence in the paint. Pause, resume. I mean, it is going to be dude, there's going to be 2 7-footers. There's going to be a power forward battle that I am so excited for in Koa versus Yaxel. A great guard play. I mean, there's no weaknesses on this court. The coaches are great. The storyline, I guess, is the winner of this game, the coach gets the North Carolina job.
Yeah, that's true. Both of their names have been brought up a lot in that job. We'll see. Or maybe the loser does. Who knows? Maybe the school who wins, will end up keeping their job.
Ooh, that is tricky. Maybe the loser does, because if you were to win a title, why leave? The loser...
They're going to throw him a bag, sign him to an extension, So I would imagine the loser of this game probably ultimately will get the UNC job. Michigan's favored by 1.5. I would imagine just because it's in Indy. I think Arizona's the better team. I think their guards are better. They're a little bit more inexperienced as a team. Lindenborg's older, Cadeau's older, so I don't really know. This one's a toss-up. I see why the spread's so close. I'm going to ride with my original pick. I'm taking Arizona. I think they've been the best team all year. And the only way I really see Michigan winning this is if they can get the Arizona bigs in foul trouble early. And that way Lindenborg, has a little bit more room just to go and drive, make dribble drives. And then they've got that super tall white guy at center. He's able to shoot over the top of people when they have to, take some of their bigs out that are in foul trouble. But I think guard play is going to matter a lot in this game. I think Jaden Bradley is a lot better than Elliot Cadeau. Both these coaches, it's pick your poison. This is 1A and 1B when it comes to the top teams in the country, but I'm going to go with Arizona.
Yeah, and you brought up a great point. I think Elliot Cadeau is the X factor of this game. I really do believe how well he plays determines the outcome of the game, because you know what you're going to get out of these Arizona guards, right? They're rock solid. Whereas Cadeau's more of a dice roll. He's a roulette. Like, you don't know what you're going to get night in, night out. So if he comes and plays the way that he has the majority of the year, then I truly expect Michigan to come out and possibly win. I'm not guaranteeing a win, be in it, but if he plays the way he did against Duke, then I can see Arizona winning this game by honestly double digits by 12. But I mean, by double digits, I mean 12 to 15 range.
Yeah, I think my X factor for this game is Arizona big Toby Awaka. I mean, he's an animal on the glass. He can rebound like no other, and I think he's really going to cause Yaxel some problems inside of the 3-point line. I mean, he can shoot. I know he can shoot, but I just think Arizona's bigs are so much better than Michigan's, other than Lindenborg. He's the exception, but I think if Awaka has a good game defensively on Lindenborg, then I don't see a world where Michigan wins really.
Yeah, and Arizona just comes at you in waves. Both these teams come at you in waves. It's going to be a great game. I think this is
Yeah.
the best Final Four matchup we've seen since Kentucky versus Wisconsin in 2015.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is two heavyweights, and it's like I said earlier, I think the winner of this game will ultimately win the national championship just because I think both of their here's another point I forgot to bring up. I want to make this known just for the viewers and stuff. Michigan has arguably had the easiest run to the Final Four out of any of these teams, and Arizona had to go through ACUF. They had to go through Utah State, and they had to play the three-headed monster in Purdue. So, I mean, I think their competition that they've had to play in order to get to this point has been substantially better than Michigan's, and that's going to factor into this game, I think, quite a bit.
And that's where I've been more impressed with Arizona, despite how good Michigan's been. And that's where I can see a world where Arizona does win in that 10 to 15 range. I don't think that's too crazy of a take.
No. Well, in that case, I'm going to take Arizona plus 1.5 just because they're on the road and not on their side of the United States. I really don't think that factors in too terribly much.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a curse ended, most likely, unless UConn wins.
I
It's
was about
either
to
going to
say, we'll
be
see.
if UConn, either a Big Ten or a team from the West Coast. So we shall see. But yeah,
So we probably won't film another episode before the national championship just because these games are so close. Are you taking Arizona to win as well? Because I'm taking Arizona over UConn in the national championship.
yeah, I'm riding with the Wildcats as well. They won the national title 1997, Indianapolis. Fast forward almost 30 years later, they will run it back.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Shout out to Tommy Lloyd and shout out to Dusty May for taking the North Carolina job inevitably by the end of the season. But, we're talking about the theme of March Madness, right? And there's always a good side and bad side. And these four teams have all experienced the good side of it, especially UConn. But there's a dark side to it. And we filmed a skit that I thought that was going to bang. But as of right now, March 31st, it has been a dud. And it was just kind of, showing a playful side of players reacting to losing, heartbreak. And that plays into my point and our game here that we're about to partake in is what are the most brutal and heartbreaking things to experience as a college basketball fan? And it can even involve the regular season. It can involve the portal. It can involve a coaching search possibly. But let's get this draft going. Worst experiences as a fan in college basketball. Do you want the number one pick?
Yeah, I do, because I got something that I don't think many other programs should compare to. With my number one, I'm going to go with your team's title getting vacated. That one really hurt. I hate seeing that asterisk next to our 2013 title on every graphic I see when they show the past NCAA winners. So I'm going to say your team getting your title vacated as my number one.
Yeah, that's an experience that I don't think a lot of teams have had. I mean, funny enough, speaking of Michigan, they had two runner-ups revoked with the Fab Five.
Yeah, what a coincidence, right?
Carolina should have gotten theirs revoked for the whole, their players didn't go to school there, basically.
No, not at all.
Can you concede, though, that Louisville's was a bit much?
Nah, I never will. They were just trying to show them boys a good time, man. Like, I mean, get over it, bro.
Katina Powell.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good that's a good off-season topic. How many beers Katina Powell? But moving on. Crop that out. All right, moving on. My second pick. I'm going to go with losing on Thursday in the round of 64 March Madness. I don't think there's a feeling in sports more low and demoralizing and painful than that. Because you have to sit back, watch other teams play for an entire month in a month that you've been looking forward to since November. Best time of the year, taken away like that, right off the bat by a mid-major that no one knows. It's awful. It's terrible. You don't even want to watch the other games.
Well, yeah, see, like you said, losing on Thursday in the round of 64, but since you're a UK fan, that's usually a 3 versus 14, a 4 versus 13 matchup. So, it's also usually an upset. So, yeah, I mean, that's that's two birds one stone with that pick, in my opinion, especially just because of who you're a fan of.
And it's so quick too. Like you don't even have time to process that your season's over.
I thought it was going to happen against Santa Clara. That game was crazy.
Yeah, but with the Santa Clara one, I kind of had a feeling in the back of my head thinking, hey, there's a strong chance we lose this game. Whereas
That's
St.
fair.
Peter's and Oakland, I had no idea. No idea.
That's fair. Okay. I like that pick a lot. My second pick, I'm going to go with when your team loses to another team that you absolutely despise, like in the 2012 Final Four when y'all beat us to go to the national championship. That game irked me really bad. And just in general, like if you play Duke as a Louisville fan or a UK fan and they beat you or just whoever it may be, just a team that might be a rival, but also just a team that you just personally despise when your team loses to them. So
So
that's my second pick.
essentially losing to a rival.
Yeah, essentially, or just a team that I guess like you have a little bit of history with, even if it's not a rival, or just a team you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's no arguing that pick. That definitely sucks. This one, I think, affects you and your program more as a whole rather than in the moment. Hiring the wrong guy. And I can elaborate more on this. Hiring a guy that you had no idea was on your radar. Let's throw a
Yeah,
hypothetical here. You got a list of names, and this can happen in football or basketball. It happened more recently to me in basketball. But you have your list of names. They all say no. And you're thinking, all right, let's get our third option. And your AD pulls a rabbit out of his ass and picks the most random guy that no one expected. You get on your phone, you try to Shiano the hire, you try to Mark Stoops to A&M the hire, and you have that realization that this guy is now the face of your program. And that is a humbling experience because other fans are telling you your job's not what it used to be. You guys experienced it too with Dusty May declining and Scott Drew declining. You ended up getting Pat Kelsey. Obviously, if y'all haven't put the pieces together, I am alluding to the Mark Pope hire. That's a painful experience. Sometimes it can work out well, sometimes it doesn't, but the
yeah, I agree.
realization,
Well, okay, I'm glad that it's worked out the way it has. He's done better than I thought, a guy from College of Charleston would do in this position with this program. But I think it's Scott Satterfield just with the football program in general. Like he was never the guy. Like, and that's the worst as a fan is like when you can tell just from the outside looking in that like you weren't sitting in the interviews, but like you can just tell that like he's not going to be the guy. He never was the guy, and now he has to be the guy for at least 2 to 3 years.
yeah. Because,
With my
yes, it is at bare
Go ahead.
minimum a 3-year experience, and
Right.
you just feel like you're wasting your prime years of being a fan. Go ahead.
I agree. No, I was just going to move on to my third pick. My third pick is when your team has like a 20-point collapse, like when you just get absolutely dog walked by another program in the tournament. Doesn't matter if it's round of 64. I mean, that makes it worse. But like even if it's a Final Four, you're supposed to be one of the top four teams and you just get dog walked by 20. That's never a good feeling. So that's going to be my third pick. That's going to round out my draft.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot more in football that come to mind because in basketball, there's always, the very corny, like losing on a buzzer beater. And I don't want to be that guy that picks that. I want to think outside the box. There's some honorable mentions as I get to being on the wrong side of the bubble, especially when you see a team
Right.
that gets in, get blown out. That's to
Or just
Kentucky's
like
credit, that's rarely happens, but go ahead.
Or just like when it's a close game and like you're not hitting your free throws in the late part of the game, like they're free, so like you're expecting the guys to hit them, even if it's a 70% for a free throw shooter, like they're free, so you just want them to hit them that much more, just because it's towards the end of the second half or whatever it may be, or just like even when your star player doesn't show up in the game, like that irks fans so much in a do or die game in March. Just like when your star player is 1 for 11 from the field or whatever it may be. He's supposed to be the guy and he's not producing on that certain night for whatever reason.
Yeah. This one is going to hit home to me, you, and a lot of college basketball fans. And I've been trying to figure out a way to word this, but the non-disclosed injury
Yeah.
that ruins your season.
Yeah, I feel like that's so much more prevalent now than it ever has been, and I don't think the apple fall that far from the tree. It has to do with the NIL era.
There's so many that come to mind. It's really what I wanted to say at first is the practice injury. Like when you get the notification in the summertime that a player got hurt in practice and you're like, you've got to be kidding me, right? Like, what are we doing? But I think the non-disclosed injury is worse because it goes to, you start playing the what if game. It's just all around just chaos and bad mojo with your program. Shaden Sharp, Jaden Quaintance, just these Kentucky guys that, because now that sparks speculation, right? You have the people thinking, are they faking it? In reality, I don't think Quaintance was. Shaden Sharp was. The total dirtbag. Screw him. Total dirtbag. But Mikael Brown, back injury, back spasms, really?
I think at one point in time, he probably was experiencing something, but he was at shoot around for around the 64 game and looked fine. Like he was taking 30, 35-foot jumpers. If you're having true back spasms, then that's not even a game you're willing to play. It's shoot around. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that, but I just hope that our program learned a lesson in going to get these entitled ass 5-star players.
Yeah. So the what if scenarios, I'm gonna put it all together. The what if, the injury what if, whether it be a real injury or a fake injury, the injury what if is so painful. Do you have any injuries that come to mind as a Louisville fan that, you know, cause you to think, what if? I have a few with Kentucky, like Willie Cauley-Stein in 2014, Poitras in 2015, Jay Washington in 2019. The list goes on and on of what if that guy was not hurt.
To be honest, not really. I feel like when we were going on our runs, like in the early 2010s, we didn't really have that many injury problems. And then, I honestly checked out the last like 4 years just because of Kenny Payne. And then, I guess Michael Brown would be my only answer. Like if he had played this March, I really think we could have made a legitimate run at a Sweet 16, but, it is what it is.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Trey. You're listening to Not Top 25, presented by absolutely no one. Yeah, we don't have any sponsors yet. But to get there, why don't you go follow us? Check us out on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, wherever may float your boat. But for now, let's finish out this episode. The question of the night: what is the most heartbreaking tournament loss of your entire life? Duke is definitely experiencing one of the more heartbreaking losses any fan could ever fathom. And that plays into my next question. As a lifelong college basketball fan, what are some of the most heartbreaking losses that you've experienced, and some of the most heartbreaking losses that, if you were to put yourself in those other fans' shoes, that you couldn't even imagine?
Um, I don't know about heartbreaking loss, but I would say the most heartbreaking thing I've seen in a March Madness game, which ultimately it worked out to our favor, but Kevin Ware breaking his leg live against Duke in the Elite Eight in 2013 was one of the most gruesome things I've ever seen on television of all time. And it was just heartbreaking because everybody on the floor, even Duke players, were like, oh my gosh, like it's just so grotesque and, just a horrible event to happen in general, but especially like during a live sporting event. So that's probably the most heartbreaking event or, experience I've seen as a fan. Other ones that come to mind, I can't really think of any off the top of my head, but what would you say is yours?
I mean, obviously, what comes to mind is Wisconsin in 2015. You're 2 games away from history, edging your name into the realm of college basketball that has been untouched, and a group of corn-fed white douchebags from Wisconsin take that from you. They ruined my childhood. I think I would have been rather expelled from school. I would have rather spent 5 years in juvie as a child than experience that. I have not been the same as a fan since that. I have been pessimistic as a fan since that day. Any ounce of positivity or hope was thrown out the window. That was up there for one of the most heartbreaking. I don't think any girl could ever break my heart as much as that game. That was awful.
Yeah, it didn't help just because that was probably the best college basketball team ever assembled on paper of all time. Just with the name, like the platoon system, just even the guys who were coming off the bench are NBA all stars and veterans at this point.
Yeah, no, it burnt knowing that and I went to Kentucky basketball camp that summer going into my 8th grade year, and I remember Calipari, you know how Cal is, he's a politician. He'll get up in front of people and do, his Donald Trump-esque speech, State of the Union, and he told all of us along the lines of, you will never see something like that again in college basketball, what we did this past year. And I thought that was just him kind of lowering expectations because everyone's expectations were through the roof, but he was right. 38 straight wins with a Power 5 team will never happen again. And we had a chance for 40 and blew it to a team that has guys playing in China, Singapore, and your local YMCA in Madison, Wisconsin. While Devin Booker is dating Kendall Jenner, playing in finals, Karl Towns is making multi-million dollars playing for the New York Knicks, and the list goes on and on. It sucks.
It's tough.
Is there any other games? Louisville, I mean, I'm not trying to be that guy. I mean, I feel like y'all have had some rough ones. Like Morehead State comes to mind, losing to us multiple times.
Well, I said it earlier, but that one against y'all, the year that y'all won in 2012 was rough just because I loved those teams growing up. I loved our backcourt we had. Our bigs had high motors. Obviously, Ricky P was the coach. Like, we were just firing on all cylinders. And, just Cal being Cal and just the notoriety coming into that game. It's obviously an in-state rivalry, but, just the names of the players who were on the court during that game, that was a heartbreaking loss as well.
Yeah, I hate being the guy that keeps bringing him up, but 2015, you guys lost in the Elite Eight in overtime to Izzo, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, we've had some battles with Izzo. That one was tough, but it is what it is.
All right, that'll wrap things up here for episode 10, our last episode of the 2026 college basketball season. And our first season of collegiate season is in the books for Not Top 25. I'm glad we did this, brother, and a lot more to come.
Yeah, it feels good. Excited for the future, excited for the now. A lot
Yeah.
of good stuff in there.
Well, everyone, on behalf of Trey and Keaton here in the Chesterfield living room, thank you guys for listening as always, and deuces.
Peace out.